Lauren Cooks Books, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag, which I'm not sure if I've ever actually done before, but I've been gone for pretty much half a year, so it seemed like a good idea to come back and use this tag to talk about what I've actually been reading so far this year. Like a very official, professional young lady, I've got my questions here, so let's just dive into it, I guess. Best book you've read this year is question number 1. Spoilers for my next video coming out, which is going to be my best and worst books of the year so far, where I kind of review all of the books I've actually read. So we're not going to get into that, mostly because I'm still not sure what my number 1 is. I've read a lot of really good books this year. Question 2 is the best sequel you've read in 2020. I have not been reading a huge amount of series, or rather I've not been continuing a large amount of series. I've read a couple of first books in a series, but never gotten around to actually continuing. The only sequel I've read so far this year is A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab, which is obviously one of the most well-known fantasy books or series in all of BookTube. And I'm going to give you the basic spiel, because I can't tell you what happens in this book because it's a sequel. So, you know, 4 Londons, each with a different level of magic, or a different history with magic, and a different kind of use of magic, and moving between those 4 worlds, the drama, the politics, the anthropology. Honestly, this is outselling itself. I never expected this series to be as good as it is. The more I think about it, the more I want to forget my entire TBR for this month and read the chunk that is the 3rd book in this trilogy. But I'm going to try and be good. A new release that I haven't read yet but I want to. Normally I don't really go in for new releases. I tend to be a backlist reader. But one book that's caught my attention recently is Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, which is a novel in verse, a YA novel in verse, which sounds really interesting. It's all about the black experience and the black experience in drag. So it kind of puts together my experience of queerness with an experience that is totally outside myself, and kind of smushes them together in a cute, gay little book. With the June we had, there wasn't a Pride. So I'm going to try and continue reading queer books for as long as I humanly can. The rest of my year, my TBR is jam-packed with very queer books to kind of make up for this lack of Pride. Honestly, it feels like we didn't have Christmas. Hetties, I don't know if you know how this feels. Like, so we didn't have Christmas, but we also didn't have fundamental human rights. So the next question is, what is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year? Normally I don't really know what's coming out. I don't really keep a good track of it. I did start using NetGalley recently, and I read a really good comic called Titan, which was great. I would quite like to own that. The only book I've really heard about and honestly thought I wanted to read was, again, a new V.E. Schwab book, which is The Invisible Life of Addie, which I think is about a witch who falls in love with the devil, and they kind of just are together for all of history, which sounds amazing. It's got very big vibes of my current writing project. An author that I love, Kate Mascarenhas, is also bringing out a new book, which I think is called On the Winged Horse. Very much excited for that. I did get that on NetGalley and then it vanished because I don't understand how NetGalley works. I am so old, I can't get it to work. So yeah, a couple of books that I am quite keen to get on my shelf soon. The next question is, which book was your biggest disappointment? Ooh, I don't know. You know what, I do know what my biggest disappointment is. The Ruby and the Smoke by Philip Pullman, which admittedly was written in the 80s, but it is a story about a young Victorian girl solving a mystery, and honestly thought I would be down for it. Thought I would be there for it. Very racist, you know, in that way that because it's about the Empire it's allowed to be, but also just like a shit story from Philip Pullman. Like, everything is solved off screen. All the problems are magically solved off screen, and I think it's the most frustrating thing in a mystery. This is why I don't read crime or thriller. Yes, because I'm soft and I cry when I get scared, but also because, like, I'm very specific about the way I need a mystery to be solved when I watch a film or read a book. Like, Knives Out, perfect perfect way to solve a mystery for me, because you're involved in the process. And this book led me down one route where I thought we were solving the mystery, and then she like comes back and, oh, a little boy solved the mystery and here's everything you were looking for. And it was just a bit like, oh, so this was all a waste of time. Great. Also, you know, Philip Pullman is in my bad books anyway because he's too old to understand that transgender people are people. Biggest surprise for me, that was 5 by Hallie Ravenfold. I'm not surprised that I liked this book. The things that it taught me surprised me. This is a look at the lives of the 5 canonical victims of Jack the Ripper. And what I loved is the words Jack the Ripper are not mentioned in this tome. It is all the life stories of 5 women who fell on hard times, and it completely turns the narrative you're used to on its head, just for a different perspective, a different scholarly outlook. The introduction of this completely changed my understanding of the whole case. Has that ever happened where you've read a non-fiction book where the first 20 pages have changed your outlook on one of the most famous and scandalised and popularised narratives and dehumanised narratives of all time? I think it hasn't. Read the 5, please. This was also very useful to me because I wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about it, because I'm setting a novel kind of around here. It's not really like mentioned in 2 scenes, but I want to have a bit more of an understanding of what happened beyond the popular narrative. And it was fantastic, it really helped. Who am I that reads a whole damn non-fiction book to write one scene of my own? I am an accomplished author. Favourite new author or new to me author? I think, even though I didn't give this 5 stars or 4 stars, I'm definitely going to give this to Oyikan Braithwait, who wrote My Sister the Serial Killer. She dealt with such nebulous, terrifying, morally questionable issues with such warmth and love and compassion, and also humour, that I was genuinely blown away. I will 100% buy whatever she brings out next, even if it is scary. That's how much I enjoyed it. It was fantastic. Also loved The Underground Railroad. Was on my shelf for a really long time, but I fell in love with Colson Whitehead's writing style recently, and I was moved to tears so often, and that isn't something that happens very much with me anymore with books, but it was really affecting. Oh my god, Paul Beatty as well. Basically, any new author I picked up in my BLM reading vlog, I just fell in love with. Next question is newest fictional crush, which, yeah, moving on. New favourite fictional character, I don't know why that was so hard to say, but it is either going to be Shug from The Colour Purple, who is just a phenomenal woman who does not give a flying fig what society or men think of her. She does not label her love. She has a take on spirituality and religion that is really insightful for an atheist to see, and it's kind of just about indulging in this world we have, and surely if there is a god, they can't be mad about that. And the relationships between Shug and the other characters were nebulous, but they were beautiful, and they absolutely made sense for her character. Slightly different take on the concept of a person. Portia from The Children of Time. Portia is a name that is given to a sentient spider in this book, and kind of, as we go through the generations of her descendants, we always come back to a one called Portia. It's kind of like a placeholder name for her people. And I just loved the concept that despite having the same name all the way through these generations, every spider stood for something very different, very human. So we had scientists and warriors and priestesses, and it was just this really powerful matriarchal society, but it also confronted nobody wins when one gender has more power over the other. Feminism isn't about female superiority, it's about gender parity, and that made a very clear point in this book, which was really nice to see, without it being like, the women have taken over and us poor men have to cut off our pee-pees. Don't know where that came from. I was was not expecting to enjoy this book, and it's a big book to commit to when you're not sure. Loved it. Loved the fact that spiders were people. God, what next? This does have a sequel. And it's already out, and I'm after it. So the next question is, name a book that made you cry. I mentioned a few at the top of this video already. The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. Made me cry worse than I have in a long time about any fictional media. And also I'm going to say The Colour Purple, which I finished last night and I had a little bit of cry about as I finished listening to it. It wasn't like, ooh, it was just like a welling of the eyes, like when you first hear Eliza sing The Orphanage in Hamilton. Just that kind of, ooh, and like a little bit of tear. A book that made me happy. This is The Kraken Wakes by John Wyndham. I read this while I was commuting, back when we commuted. Do you remember that? We would get on a tube, a tiny little hot pokey train with 300 other people like here, and we would like stand like this when I went round a corner. Disgusting. I honestly can't imagine anything worse now. But this made the journeys really bearable because it's about humanity being destroyed. And when you're on the tube, God, you want something misanthropic to read. It is about, as most John Wyndham is, a quiet alien invasion. It's that cosy catastrophe, kind of middle English narrator who is surprisingly woke for his time, doesn't treat his wife like shit, and just has to like, not even fight, but observe the changes in the world. That's what I really appreciate about Wyndham, is there's very little attempt by humans to actually save themselves. It's much more kind of like, this is what happened, and here's how I found it. The next question is, name a beautiful book that you bought this year. This was a gift from my other half, like immediately after I put it on my wish list, so since then I've like actually started using my wish list. And it is The Inland Sea by Madeline Watts. Look at it. Look at its radiance. I actually started reading this last night, which, that orange with that purple, ooh bitch, ooh. Yeah, as I was saying, I started reading this last night, and was like instantly 50 pages in. It's so compelling. Story of a young Australian girl kind of coming to terms with her mental health and trying to figure out what she's going to do in her life. And that's as far as I know, really. But I've put a lot, can you see those? A lot of little note tabs in so far. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I don't like saying that I need to read stuff by a certain time because that freaks me out and I get weird about it and I never read it. But there is a pile that I'm really quite keen to get into and I'll go grab them. Okay, so these are the 3 books that I most definitely want to read by the end of the year. They are The Unseen by Ray Jacobson, which is translated by Don Shaw from the original Norwegian. I've just got a thing at the minute for islands and books about water. Don't understand why that's such a niche thing, but oh my god, The Gracekeepers by Kirsty Logan. I read that this year. Phenomenal. Really amped up my need to read some watery books. Right, okay. I saw Amy talking about this on Twitter, and I was like, it's got a chicken on the front. I think I need it. No one's explained what this is to me. The only thing I've seen is that it's a political comedy about a farmyard heist. Like, concept, this is literary chicken run. If it's not literary chicken run, I'm going to be so upset. Oh my god, another recommendation from Amy. Literally, the only books I buy are basically things that Amy recommends on Twitter. Ionopolis by Glenn James Brown, which is a insight into the lives of lots of working class people in the Teesside kind of estates in these big high-rise. The big high-rises that we have in the northeast, which apparently is sometimes known as Ionopolis. It's phenomenal. I've already started it. I started it last month. I'm about a fifth of the way in, and so far it's had a stunning story about Peg Powler. Maybe I'm putting a Peg Powler chapter in my novel now. Maybe it's happening. For those of you unaware, Peg Powler is a northern witch who lives in the river, but also sometimes in puddles. because, you know, we've got to have crackhead mythology up there. These are 3 books I am most excited to get to, other than finishing up the Inland Sea. That is also quite high on my list of priorities. So apparently the original video of this tag does not exist anymore, but I have seen some people trying to link the original creator, so I will also try and do that. I hope you've had a wonderful 7 months of reading. God, are we really there? In like 4 or 5 months of lockdown? I hope you've managed to actually get some reading done, because I have not been in the mental state for it at all, really. But I'm getting back to it now with the power of audiobooks. I'm slowly getting there. So hopefully I'll actually do some reading and I'll have some stuff to talk about. Oh, God, I need to be ended. Bye!